Games Workshop teased the new Dominion box, and I guess I'm starting a Kruleboyz army now. Fun. I was looking to start a new Warhammer army despite the piles of unpainted plastic I had amassed, but I was stuck between the Nighthaunt and the Gloomspite Gits. Both of these armies really capture my love for the Halloween aesthetic and everything that comes with it, but I was stuck on the fence. Really couldn't get into the lore. I didn't like the fact that the ghosts in the army are basically just tortured souls who have been given ironic jobs to do by Nagash that kind of go with their, uh, I guess, characters when they were living, which didn't really seem like it allowed for too much personality or customization, so I knew it wouldn't really work. In addition, from a collecting standpoint, the Nighthaunt have very similar models with not much variation in size, and for me, I am normally someone who gets bored very easily and always needs something new and exciting to try, or else I know that projects will just never get finished. And this was one of the kind of main reasons why I just couldn't justify it because I knew, like, after painting one or two squads, I'd get bored of them kind of all looking the same. As for the Gloomspite Gits, I really love the Squig models. They have so much character and personality and just seem all around really fun to paint. But a lot of the models in the range just were like too goofy for me. It's hard to explain what I mean by that, but they were just too many visual elements that clashed. For example, the Gobapalooza models is just like too random. I can understand how some people, especially orc players, would be drawn to that, but it's just a little bit like silly looking from my standpoint. So that was kind of holding me back there too. Because I want to find an army where each model I paint would be fun and I'd be able to field lots of them. The funny thing is, I don't even intend to play games with these armies. I just really enjoy the painting and creativity process, and there's something about seeing a fully finished themed army in a display case or on a table that looks really cool. In addition, if I'm not playing games with the armies, I'm not really limited by which unit performs well or are allowed in the army, and I can focus entirely on the aesthetic choices. In addition, if I'm not playing games with the armies, I'm not really limited by which unit performs well or are allowed in the army, and I can focus entirely on the aesthetic choices. I'm going to skip over the Stormcast Eternal stuff because it's not really my thing visually. I don't have too much to say about it from a design standpoint. They just are what they are. I'm not into them personally, but if you are, that's perfectly fine too. So first, we're gonna look at this Killa Boss on Great Nash Tooth. I really like this model. I'm going to say what everyone else has and mention the weird proportions. They're not that bad to me personally, but I will say it looks a little bit odd in this photograph. Because of the placement of the orc's legs, it looks like his thigh is very tiny, but it might be, to be perfectly honest, but it's not that distracting. Um, Everything about this looks pretty good, aside from some like minor issues I have with the orc's armor area. But the Nash tooth looks really amazing. It seems a lot more detailed than what I've come to expect from Games Workshop. Um, like it looks like an actual living creature as opposed to some like oddly shaped lump of plastic, which some of the new 40K orc models that have yet to be released look like. I don't know exactly what the unit is called, but it's the weird red squid creatures that the beast snagas ride on. Those models just look like toys to me for some reason. I think it's because they're not very detailed and they don't seem to have realistic biology. Now that's funny coming from uh, me, someone who really likes the squig models, but there's just something about them. They're like lacking personality also. But back to this model. I really like the armor plates. The small details are really cool, like these severed hands and severed heads. Um, yeah, I wish the orc was in a little bit of a simpler pose. It kind of draws a lot of attention to itself in a way that I'm kind of neutral about, but it could be improved. I do like the shield a lot. As people have mentioned, the shields are kind of copying the look of the people wielding them, which is okay, I guess. I don't really have a strong opinion one way or another. I guess it's cool and adds some variation. Next up is the Swampkala Shaman. I don't know how to say that word. And Potgrot. Um, I like this model. I don't have a lot to say about it. It's there's a lot of fun details on it, but it just doesn't stand out to me too much, which I guess is what they were going for. The Potgrot is interesting. At first on the Potgrot, I thought it was actually standing in the pot, which was kind of stupid. I guess it's fun and zany, but kind of dumb. But on further inspection, I don't think he's actually standing in the pot. It's just hard to tell because of how dark it is. But honestly, that improves the model quite a bit for me. Um, yeah, he looks fun to paint. He has a good facial expression. Same with the orc. They're not just looking angry and stupid. They have some, I don't know, like cunning personality, which is pretty cool. Also, they introduce a lot of fun painting opportunities, like the what's this, like some potion. I guess it makes sense because this character is like a witch, and that's it, the cauldron. But yeah, these are pretty solid. The skull will probably be pretty fun to paint, but I can see it being a little bit difficult because it's a very flat area compared to the orc, which is very detailed. So that might look a little bit funny. Okay, next up is the Killa Boss with the show-stopping stab grot. Um, yeah, pretty good. You can definitely see the weird proportions, but on this model, it isn't very distracting. It's pretty good, to be honest. It makes them a lot more imposing, because imagine how tiny this orc would be otherwise. He'd be only like maybe like 2 heads taller than the stab grot. The shield is really cool. Lots of different materials and stuff like that to paint. So it should be pretty good to add your own custom look to. The stab grot, I like most of it except the head. For some reason, I always have a hard time like understanding the aesthetic choices on helmets like this, because the rest of it looks really cool. It's like a little grot gladiator, but then it looks like it has like a tin can on its head. Like it kind of reminds me of Bender from Futurama with like his voice box grill and his antenna. But that should be pretty simple to do a head swap if it's absolutely necessary. Also, like these little, or these called like cattails. Those are pretty fun looking. Although they do look a lot like a hot dog that's going to be roasted on a fire. So might have to be careful with how I paint those. I'm not a huge fan of these, I don't even know how to describe these, like, metal trident shapes, but I don't I don't know what I would do about them, so I'll have to think about that before I actually get to building the army. Okay. Next up is the Mech Knob with Belchabana. Um, this model looks pretty good. I do agree with other people that the face looks like a Zog. I think that's what the orc from the Hobbit is called. But I pretty much like everything about this. The only thing that kind of stands out to me is the sword for whatever reason, but I think that's just like one of those nitpicks that doesn't even make sense to the person with the nitpick. Um, I really like the kind of story that this model tells, because you can actually imagine this orc going and finding a creature and impaling the tongue on this banner, and then kind of using this tongue until it like completely decomposes off of the hooks, which is kind of what they're going for. It looks like so. There's little decay holes in it, a maggot, and then even right here, it looks like it's modeled or painted to look like it's slowly falling away from those little spikes. So yeah, this is a really nice model. This might honestly be one of my favorite ones in the box. And next up, oh, I also really like this, the totem, and how they've chosen to represent each of the creatures differently. I don't know what Kragnos is considered, but each of these would introduce pretty fun painting opportunities, especially if you paint each one a little bit differently. So, like, one out of a certain metal, and then the next out of a different metal, and then maybe one's painted. So you could explore different oxidization effects and add a little bit more realistic color to the model. Next up is the Skewer Bolt Boys. These are pretty nice. The only things that really stood out to me were the size of the arrows, which are comically oversized and large, but you can't really do anything with the proportions that you're given. So, arrows will probably always look a little bit funny at the heroic 28mm Warhammer scale. But besides the arrows, the only other thing that stood out to me was this face. Now, a problem I have sometimes with Warhammer models is you can't really have undercuts in the, I guess, injection molding process. So his helmet looks like it's just flat underneath, which, I don't know, irrationally bothers me. Plus, I've never been a fan of these, like, lifting up knight helmets, so for this, I might either swap the head, but that might be a little bit difficult, or just try and model or convert this so his helmet is down like the other ones. But I don't really know. We'll have to see what happens when I have the models in front of me. Next up is the Gut Rippas. I really like these models, especially with their, what are these called, like scare shields? Yeah. There's a few that stand out to me as a little bit weird, but I really like the combination of different materials. So they have metal, painted metal, skin, leather, or like beast hide, and just like other bits that could be fun, like the little what is this, like jewelry that they have around their necks. And once again, they all have different expressions on their shields, so it's different enough that it seems fun to paint, but it's not so different that, it's way more work to paint each of them. I say that in terms of like painting Space Marines, where once you paint one, you kind of are just copying that paint job for everyone in the squad. And I feel like it would get very tedious for me personally. So, really good models. I don't really like the teeth or lips on some of them. Like, it's a little bit comical. It kind of makes them look like a Gamorrean from Star Wars, which, I mean, I'm not that into, but maybe other people are. These ones are pretty good. These ones are decent. I get this kind of highlights it. Like the teeth look like they've just been like stuck on. They don't really look functional or like they come from inside of the Orruk's mouth. Um, this is probably my least favorite model, although other people seem to like it. I'm just not a fan of the teeth. Um, Same as that previous model. And the eye patch doesn't seem orky to me for some reason. Maybe it is, but I'd imagine an orc would just like deal with it and have their like messed up eye or like uh, scarred up face just visible to everyone to see. But yeah, besides that, these are really solid models. Next up is the Hobgot Slitters. I haven't mentioned it yet, but I don't like these models. I'm not too sure why, honestly. I think it's because they don't really fit the aesthetic very well. Like, they seem like they're from a completely different army, to be perfectly honest. And in terms of their faces, they really remind me, and this probably isn't accurate, but they remind me of the troll goblin monsters from the movie Troll 2, which just absolutely ruins it for me. And I don't really know how I would fix them. Like, it'd probably be one of those things where I set out to do this massive project to cut off all their armor and make them look more like normal goblins, but I'd probably never finish it, so I might end up just selling these ones that come in the box to someone who actually likes them. Also, I've never been a fan of stuff like this. It's a completely personal aesthetic choice, but I don't know. It just looks silly. I don't know what my solution would be, but honestly, I might just prefer them to have nubs. I'm not too sure. Okay, is there anything else? Nope, that's everything. Oh wait, no, it's not. I thought that the extra models were in a different article, but they're actually at the bottom of this one. Stormcast stuff, we're going to skip that. Then here is the Beast Skewer Kill Bow. This is a... I like basically everything about this model, to be completely honest. Like, it's zany, it's well detailed, it tells an interesting little narrative. The only thing I don't like too much is the goblins. So I'm trying to think about it, but I think the thing I don't like is how it looks like they're wearing dunce caps, which doesn't. I guess it kind of matches the other orcs, but I would have preferred if they were wearing hoods instead. It looks like this one is kind of a hood, but this guy has like a full-on dunce cap. It looks like, which is like a little bit too the labyrinth for me, I think. I also don't get this part. It looks like some mechanical part of the kill bow launcher is set with an axe that's being attached to it with an axle. which I don't like. It's just not functional looking. Like, it's too zany, but doesn't have purpose. Like, if this is a winch or something, I don't even know if that's what it's called, but is this goblin supposed to spin it repeatedly? Or is it like I don't know how it's supposed to work and it kind of bothers me, but it looks easy enough to leave off and doesn't look like it would affect the function of this too much. I might just add like a normal crank or something, to be perfectly honest. Last but not least is the Break a Boss on Meyer Brute Trogoth. This model is the best in the range so far, in my opinion. It's definitely an improvement on the Gloomspite Git Trogoffs, to me personally. The Gloomspite Git stuff, the models, the proportions have gone like too crazy, in my opinion, to the point where they don't look too functional anymore. Like, I know it's a fantasy miniatures game, but I don't know. I still like realism in my stuff. Some people have kind of figured that this groin belly plate is a little bit too cartoony, but I actually like it because it's functionally cartoony and it makes sense in terms of the atmosphere that they've kind of created for the rest of this army. Yeah, I don't really have anything bad to say about this one. I like how there's like a what is this, like some kind of warthog skull, Warhammer warthog skull hanging down. It's well detailed, it makes sense. It has a cushion for its back, which makes it so much more realistic than other models I've seen. Like, it's not just like created to sell a product. They've actually taken the time to think about how different parts of it would function. Um, for the orc, the pose is really good. It's like a functional pose. He's not just like standing or sitting funny to hold a weapon in a cool way. He's actually leaning back to kind of manipulate where the Trogoth is walking. I also like his little stabby stick. Makes a lot of sense, and it's extra long, so um, you know, can be used on the troll to goad it forward, or against enemies, or in my case, for goading a horde of squigs. Yes, that's right. This will be the centerpiece of the horde of squigs, and I think it will look really cool and really striking. I also like his what's this, like a Warhammer wolf mask. That's about all I have to say for now. I will talk more about this project a bit closer to when the Dominion box is released, and go through some of the squig conversions I have in mind. Thanks for tuning in.